Okay. So I just want to thank you, Dr. Ayodele Nzinga, for the wonderful production that's up presently through Sunday. Tupac, Biggie and Tupac Are Dead, um, by Biko Eisen-Martin. It is a phenomenal work, and you all, oh my goodness, your direction, your cast, your lighting, the costumes, and the actors. Oh my gosh, they are just so amazing. Um, the play is really, I was just thinking today how I might ask you to frame it. It feels like the history of Black people via the lives of these two young people that died a little too soon, a lot too soon. It's, the way that Biko takes us through their lives. It just, I mean, we're like in the bows of the slave ships, you know. We are experiencing Jim Crow, America, and then he has all of these ancestors that speak to the moments. You know, I mean, it's just crazy. Langston Hughes shows up. General Harriet Tubman shows up with a rifle, and meanwhile, we've got these marvelous characters. Biggie and Tupac, showing a lot of love for one another as they try to figure out, where in the heck am I?
Yeah.
Where is this place? Like, I thought we had a show, like, what show is this? And then, like, I don't think I want to be a part of this cast.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then, the masking and the different dimensions, beginning with having everyone come out, and the sort of twilight kind of look to the stage. I mean, it's just like, oh my goodness. So maybe we could just start talking about this work and how it's so indicative of what you do at the Lower Bottom Players, what you do at BAM House, what you do as a creative artist. This is what you do, poet laureate of Oakland, California.
I really feel like that's a good point to start at. There's so much credit to be given to Biko for creating the work, but the finding of it and the fact that we do a particular kind of work, we say that we don't do entertainment, we do transformative theater. And we of course understand that you need to be entertained. Your attention needs to be gathered before we can engage in transformative experiences. I like the way that you framed the work in terms of it being the history of the Black experience, perhaps here in North America, distilled through the lens of these two hip hop icons. Um, we do give free work. I do work that wants you to leave out of the theater feeling taller than you were when you first came in. I like work that allows me to think, that takes the cast that does the work on a journey so that as they learn the story, they learn. They learn about themselves, they learn about the subject matter, why the subject matter is important to the audience. And for me, as an artist, I'm in conversation. That is the purpose of creating work, is to be in conversation with awareness, the current moment, to be ever reminiscent of our history so we can connect it to the dots. I am very much a child of the continuum, and I appreciate the way that it presents itself in this work. That line of ancestors, all of us in a conversation with dead people, living people, uh, Europeans, other people that have crossed our paths with huge ideas, with the problematizing of, where do we begin? Slavery? Ah, but what part of the game is that? Um, that it would be portrayed in large part through a conversation around a dice game is brilliance. You know, the way that this is also a critique of entertainment in North America, entertainment as a blood sport, um, how we hold icons, how we hold heroes, and how complicit we can be without thinking sometimes in the arena mentality of watching two champions um, go at loggerheads instead of, as Ida in the play points out, realizing we're all in the same conversation here. We're all in the same conversation, and that perhaps we don't have the time to problematize each other's existences. And it takes a particular kind of brilliance for a writer to be able to put that line in Ida B. Wells's mouth and Nikki Barnes's mouth in the same piece of work and have it potentially mean two different things, but all be a part of this conversation about, are we ever going to get to the show here? And when we get to the show, what's going to happen? What's in it for us? Is the show freedom? Are we going to get there, and at what cost? So, very, very much in line with work that fits in my body of work, fits what the lower bottom players are about, all those things.
Right. So true. And I was just thinking about the dice game. And we call that rolling. No. I was thinking dominoes. Dominoes is rolling the bones, right? But in both cases, we've got these black dots on white. And
Yes,
the white can be ivory, but it's still a white framework, right? It's like
yes,
it's like, what
yes.
is that? White supremacy? What is that? Racism? What is that? And we got these little tiny black dots that you're trying to put together to score, right? It's all about scoring. It's all about, coming away with the highest point average. And who's measuring anyway? That's what the characters sort of come to realize. Like, why do I want to participate in being measured in a way that I'm never gonna win? I'm never gonna win. So what is this?
Compelled to play a game, compelled to play a game with a zero sum in. There can only be one winner, or can there? And if there
Mm-hmm.
can only be one winner, is that he samples Hamilton. Biggie says, I'm not throwing anyone a shot. And Pac says, maybe you ought to. This don't look right, you know? We have invitations to join things. I talk about that in can't remember what poem. It's in my new Baldwin poem.
Mm.
And there's a line in which I say, we have been made no invitations that we should not decline. So this ever standing invitation to cross over, come out the water, come out of the middle passage and enter into and participate in the new world. Participate in the new world where you land as a commodity. Come and participate. We all can make money off the sweat of our brow, off the commodification of our ideas, our soul, our talent.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this ever-present tension to come out of the middle passage and this ever-present resistance to say that the new world ain't all it's cracked up to be. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting too that the work is staged between worlds. Worlds are by and large in agreement. We are at a moment in history where we have the potential to walk between the veil, walk between worlds. Change and is always a negotiated and ever-changing place. And
Mm-hmm.
the conversations about democracy and fascism, and the conversation about is who's righter or wronger in the Israeli Hamas thing. Why is it called the Israeli Hamas thing? Why isn't it called the Israeli Palestinian thing? And for us to hold up things like the fact that I don't deny that there was probably sexual violence used on the 7th of October. But if we think that that sexual violence lives in isolation in that situation, then we're terribly naive. So is it okay if who in this rush to figure out who pushed who first? What is the acceptable limit to what we can do to one another? And if you join that, fully embracing that, then who or what does that make you? And who or what does it leave you open to? And is there perhaps not a place between worlds, between paradigms, where you can step out of one way of being? Mm-hmm. Zero games, and it's okay to a proper retribution for a rape is a murder of a child. If we can step out of paradigms that make you sick at your stomach like that into a new world, to get there, there has to be this liminal space where rules are questioned and we decide what we take with us and what we leave behind, and why, and where we question ourselves about why do we take this with us? Mm-hmm. Why do we leave this behind? And so I think very much we're in that liminal space right now. Mm-hmm. Another poem of mine where I quote King, where he talks about the long arc of justice. And I compare that to Robert Christman telling me in an interview that the pendulum between right and wrong is always swinging. It's always moving. And in my conclusion that, and in that process, there is a long moral arc, and that pendulum is in play. It's hands, it's us. It's what do we do in the movement of the pendulum to make sure it lands somewhere else. And so when I talk about moving, and you understand and appreciate this, when I talk about the thinness in the veil, the moving between worlds where, like in the play, you could hear ancestors really loud. Yes. Tell them nothing is new, and we have been here before. And what is, there's all that comes behind us. And if we stay on the path we're on, perhaps before us is the abyss. And are there third paths? Are there ways to land in a new paradigm where things are measured and weighed differently? Can we land in a paradigm where there is no beef between Du Bois and Booker T? Can we land in a paradigm where Pac and Biggie could have lived out the real reality of their lives and they were friends a lot longer than they had beef? Yes. And when they died, do we understand? Do we, as Tupac says in the end, you better get the meaning? Do we understand that they were sacrificed? Do we understand that they were lynched? And do we understand how we don't do that again? Mm-hmm. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly. And I was just thinking about sort of what you were saying just now, and I was thinking about the characters talking about naming, like, who are you? Mm-hmm. You know, like, who are you? And then I'm just thinking how we are more than what we have produced. Like, we are not the thing that we do. We are, you know, like Tupac was not his canon, you know, he created the canon, but he was not the canon, you know. Mm-hmm. Oh, it says Tango, but I think it might be Biko that's joining us. But anyway, he's on mute right at the moment. Yes. And then also I was thinking, besides the naming, I was thinking about the whole idea, what you do at Lower Bottom Players is you do ritual theater. The ritual is the prayer. The ritual is the change possible. Hey, Nico, good to see you. It's been like so many years, but you look the same.
Not too many.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, fine. We're just marveling over the work and the collaboration between, this brilliant woman and her theater and you, the brilliant brother, and the wonderful work. So just
Thank
jump
you.
on in and talk about, Biggie and Tupac are dead. Really? Are they really dead? Put a question mark there. Or do they live in work like this? It makes us question the reality that we have chosen to participate in. That is not our reality at all. It just keeps us on the ship, right? We just
Mm,
keep ourselves all chained and in all the yuckiness of the transport. Why don't we get off the ship? We do have a choice.
I don't know that we're still on the ship. I agree that we have not come out of the middle passage.
Hmm.
And by and large, I think that's by choice. Because to come out of the middle passage would mean to seamlessly join the new world. We instinctively know that the new world is now past, and memory allows us to remember the world. So I don't know. This work is very much off the shift. This my wanting to direct this work is in an impetus very much off the ship. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it is bound in this is a type of fugitivity. It's very much get free work, liberatory work. It's the experience again of the spaces in between worlds that we were talking about before Biko came on, space between paradigms, the liminal, where change is possible, where one could leave the known reality that's been a cancer and get to a space of one's own determination or making. But then there's a space in which we're in. This space, I think, that very much is the still being in the middle passage and having not crossed all the way over, having not overcome, is in the space of wanting to birth myself in some place that's free, and my refusal to integrate or assimilate into the so-called new world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, was that a Biko question? I couldn't help it. I just heard that about on the ship and I had to
Well,
protest.
I don't know. I still think there's some ship stuff there because even if you're not physically on the ship, you could be on the ship in your mind. And I'm thinking of all the places that we are, those of us who are not interrogating place are still on the ship in this different iteration. I mean, it's been hundreds of years, so the ship has changed, right? But it's still captivity. We don't have the keys necessarily. Well, we do have the keys, but it's a journey, and it's one has to have tools. So Biko, talk to us about this wonderful work, and you sort of take us through. It's a history. Ayodele and I already spoke about how it's a history of Black America because everything is there, and the ancestors are there, sort of as like signposts, speaking to these younger ancestors because we are ancestors too. We're living ancestors. So everybody's an ancestor. We all participate in that realm of possibility.
Definitely. It's interesting. You guys are saying such interesting things about my play. I'm like, I don't, I what I'm supposed to interrupt this and I don't want to bring the conversation back down to earth. Definitely. Yes, and to me, that's at this point with this production, that's really what I'm more into. I could talk till I'm blue in the face about some intention or what I did, but at this point, the art is out there for you to, tell me what you saw and what you felt. Um, it's almost like it's not mine anymore, or this iteration of it isn't mine. It hasn't been mine for quite some time. And I mean that in the best kind of way. But I've actually already started writing some new scenes for the next iteration of it, whenever that might be. So, what the piece means now, and to me, all the things that people are gleaning from it. One of the all the just your conversation, the conversation you're having is why I wanted to do this, and why I wanted it to be done in this space with this company, with this director, when that became a possibility, because of, you know, everybody kind of meets material at a different point, you know. Some people want to put up shows. Some people are really into the hip hop aspect of it. Some people might be really into the history aspect of it. Some people, you know, are really interested in the theatrical. You know, I remember I sent a script, or I sent something about it to a an actor I know, and they were like, "Oh, I love this Moliere thing, more of that," you know. And it was clearly like the connections to white theater that excited this person. So that really wasn't my, you know, but that was the trip for them. You know what I mean? So it's like what I love about this iteration, though, is I think there is a special care given to the spiritual and liberatory nature of the piece. Because I think, you know, this liminal space that you speak of is really a space that all artists and really true lovers of art, I think, live in this space and want the rest of the world to live in this space. But it because the world is, you know, a ship or this or whatever your metaphor may be, you know, we don't want to be in a space of kind of change and deep reflection for the purpose of evolution. But for us, that's just kind of the space we find ourselves in every morning when we wake up. And it's a great, it's a daunting feeling, but it's a great feeling, and you want to share it with the world. It's a responsibility to share with the world. And I, you know, you see that liminal space almost eat artists alive when they don't have an outlet to share it, or a understanding of kind of their outsiderness in a world that's very focused on a kind of dog eat dog, you know, work for an hour, get paid a dollar kind of mentality that we're kind of forced to have. You know, these plays, these moments offer people a respite from that, to be like, hey, well, maybe there is another way to look at this. Maybe there is another way to go about this. Wait, I've never even been to this location. I didn't know this was going on in downtown Oakland. I thought it was just, you know, X, Y, and Z. And, you know, oh, maybe there's a big part of the Bay Area theater community that has been, you know, neglecting this area for whatever reason, you know. So just the creation, the creation and the expansion of this liminal space, you know, I think is a nice coded way of like expressing what we do, you know. It's a underground railroad of sorts, a laboratory of sorts, you know, and a home of sorts, you know. We got a lot of new artists in the project, you know, who have instantly found themselves in the midst of a great community. So, you know, it's a lot of things, you know. So, and I'm just happy to be a part of it, for real, for real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you both so much for recognizing each other's, you know, values, and this work is just so marvelous. Why don't we talk a little bit about, you know, this marvelous cast and the, you know, the direction and, you know, the team that makes the work what it is. And then I want to circle back to your personal relationship with um, Tupac and Biggie. You know, Biko, you know, you grew up here in San Francisco, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Nzinga, are you a Bay Area native too?
Been in Oakland for 50 years. I think about.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So there's a kind of a, I mean, those of us who live here, we relate to the piece too, in a way, because, you know, Tupac is ours. You know, we know we're not doing a beef thing. It's just a reality thing. I mean, you know, Tupac was shooting that poetic justice around the corner from where I raised my children in West Oakland. And so it's a
Mm-hmm.
thing. I mean, you know, like it's a thing. And then Marin, we know where that is. We know where the high school is. I mean, and then people who are in New York, they know the high school he went to there, or the arts college or the art school he went to there. So, and then Biggie, I just really loved learning about, that he was Caribbean ancestry, and his name was Christopher, and it was just like a real humanizing of them as well that happens in the piece. That's really touching, and they get to be young people because they were hecka young when they left here violently. It wasn't like they died in their sleep. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And I think about now we have a thing called active shooters and all of the school shootings, which are terrible as well. And while your play is going on, Ayodele, they have an opera in San Francisco called Innocence, and it's looking at school shootings. And these people who were killed are back on stage. So there's another liminal space. So it's sort of like in the air, right? This thing.
I'm looking at the conversation between Kendrick Lamar and Drake.
Mm.
And looking at the phenomenon of Chris Bloods and Pyrus on the same page, and looking at the relationship with guns is interesting. They say it's not the gun, it's the shooter. More crazy white people got guns than Black folks. So the idea of harnessing power and the idea of using moments of beef or moments in which we have instructions, we know how to act this script out. There's another thing I like about it, the recurrence, how Biko samples memory, how things happen on top of things that happen on top of things, right? So there is a script, how it goes, the troubling of the script, the seizing of the moment to rewrite, to redirect. I think in many ways, this play captures that spirit of looking at the potentiality that flows out of the event that was there. So I don't, like I said, my point of reference in the moment, I spoke about it in a post-show talk the other day, is actually looking at this particular moment in time and what's there happening in real time, and looking at it through the lens of this play, and looking at how the similar incidents in the past have played out, and wondering what, as a human unit, we've understood since then, and what the potentiality in this particular moment is. And that's about time for me.
Yeah.
In this space. I reluctantly have to leave. I love conversations about work. And I hate that I can't stay and continue to indulge in this.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm sorry I came on late, but I can't go for too much longer myself. We can do some more at another time, or if you want to keep going now, it's up to. Because I know I apologize for that. So if you want to get a 2-for-1, we can go again.
Yeah. Well, Ayodele, can you give like the commercial? Your theater is located at 1540 Broadway in Oakland. Da 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 da.
Pac and Biggie Are Dead by Biko Eisen-Martin, played by the Lower Bottom Players, runs through June 30th. We have 4 more shows. One Friday night, 2 Saturday, a matinee and a night show, and we close Sunday with the 4:00 show. Go on to the Lower Bottom Players. Players is spelled Playaz. Go on the Lower Bottom Players website and grab you a ticket and come on down and be a part of this experience.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Ayodele. And yeah, Biko, let's talk a few more minutes and then we can see if we could do it again, or this people's might just be it. So are you, I know you're bi-coastal. Are you here or in New York?
In the moment, I am neither. I'm in the ethers of travel right now.
Okay.
That are going quite hectically. I wasn't planning to be where I am right now in this moment, but
okay,
I'm traveling at the moment.
Okay, well, safe travels, and thank you so much for fitting us in. So, maybe just 5 more minutes to sort of wrap. But you've seen the production. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the cast. And I know as a writer, you put this work on paper, but then it doesn't live until it's embodied. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how, this cast, they're simply wonderful, embody the work, and how you see it now that it actually is people, breathing, is actually breathing and coughing and crying and, doing all the things that human beings do to a work that make it like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing, which I'm sure is probably pretty, exciting for an artist.
Yeah, it is. It's humbling. It's very humbling, and it's because the artists are very much giving you a gift, by kind of putting this thing on its feet and breathing life into it. And so it's very humbling. It's also inspiring. It's also very just cool to watch their take on it, what they do, with the script, what they understand, what they need an explanation for. All of it is just is quite amazing. And but then there's also a very scientific kind of aspect as well, or in the where once the story is on its feet, now I'm watching it with a different kind of lens, and it's still my responsibility to make the story as great as I can make it. So as I said, I have some new scenes I want to do. I have some ideas for cuts. I have some, so which is also a gift that watching actors do it gives you, which sometimes as an actor it's hard to feel that when it's like, oh man, you did this so wonderfully. Cut that whole speech. You're like, what I just did it, but it's like, no, it's actually it's not you or how you did it. It's just this doesn't fit, or this needs to be quicker, or this the audience needs to sit in silence, whatever it might be, right? But so there's also that process going on, so and I wish I could see it every day for that purpose, just to kind of really hear the piece and live with the piece. I've never had a chance to workshop this piece. It's always been something that has kind of been sprung into a production, so getting to see it once or twice it's helpful to kind of go to the next step. But I would love to be able to see it and hear it a bunch more, just to keep working on it. So there's that aspect of it as well. But also too, just seeing again the community of that space, and seeing every production forms its own community, its own family. So to see the bonds, that Pac and Biggie, that Kennzeil and Spencer have built amongst each other, and the bond of the company, and to see them having a good time together with the material, I mean, it's priceless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I was just thinking, for it to be in, the Black Arts Movement Theater, I mean, that in itself speaks to the lineage. Biggie and Tupac didn't pop out of thin air. They are part of a lineage. And that is what comes through in your work as well. The way you have, sort of the keepers of the lineage speak. I mean, it's not in our heads. You actually give them a role in the work. They speak. They speak to, the youth, Biggie and Tupac, who don't know them necessarily. And they speak to us, that there's a lineage. We didn't just pop up. you know, we're here because of other people who were here that were doing certain things, good and bad. And what is our response to what's here, in the space that we are born into? Like we don't get a chance to arrange any furniture. We just show up and have to sit down or not. So it's kind of interesting. And the soundtrack is wonderful as well. And I was thinking about, Marvin X was honored last Sunday, and Marvin X is, one of the architects of the Black Arts Movement. Um, and his work, he has work too, and his work, really holds him in a way that a person who maybe doesn't have any work might not have those reference points, but we have those reference points when you have a body of work, and you have a body of work. So we have reference points. So we don't have to make it up because we have work, to reference in you know, and of course things are in translation and everything is a draft, including our lives. So, you know, it's kind of it's just I'm so happy I didn't miss the play, you know? I didn't even know you were a playwright and an actor and a director. You do it all, you know? I think I saw painting. Are you a painter too?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I saw some beautiful paintings in something I pulled up of yours. So anyway, I'm just talking, but yeah, I really, really like the way you sort of pull all these things together and make us think about them in this way. How When did like, is this one of your new plays or had you written it a long time
No, this
ago?
actually I wrote this a long time ago. I cut it down. I did a lot of editing of
Mm-hmm.
it before they went into rehearsal. So I got them a fresh draft that was very, very cut. I think I cut about 40, 50 pages.
Oh.
There was a lot more history. Y'all talking about gangs. There was a scene where they encountered Crips and Bloods. There was a scene. There was so many different scenes that actually did not make this version of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the play itself, no, the first draft was written in 2015 while I was doing a production of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead at the Folger Theater in DC.
Oh,
So
okay.
I kind of wrote it in my meantime, in between time while I was doing
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Ah, so who did you write the play for? Who's your audience and who would you like to see, you know, in those seats?
I honestly, I think naturally, like, I write for myself. I'm my audience. I think I'm my audience first. I write what I like, pun intended. Um, and I think that, you know, of course we want black folks to see it. Of course, I would say, I think to answer your question directly in the way I think you're trying to ask it, pardon if I'm assuming, but I'm writing for black folks.
Yeah.
And particularly with Pac and Biggie, there are people who will get lost in the references. That's actually fine with me. Um, and that's even not just a black thing, it's a hip hop thing. I think if you're not in the hip hop generation, there's also some theater reference. There's so many things that I think if you're of a certain community, you might have to do a little less digging with this play. And I think that's okay. Um, Yeah, I think that's okay. But I also recognize that like everybody comes to the theater, that the majority of people who do see theater are, middle-aged white people. I think make up the majority of the, and upper, older white folks. You know what I mean? Like when you go to theaters across America, there's a majority of seats. That's who's in it. Um, and I definitely wouldn't say I'm writing for them. I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. But at the same time, I would like my play to be, good enough that it feels universal, that there's something that can be, and I'm sure these people, if anything, have heard of Pac and Big and, you know, the theater references and even the play that this one is based off of. So, it's a little something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm kind of writing for me and my community and what extends from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like that you write things that you want to see. And that makes a lot of sense considering you know, thinking about August Wilson and what he said around you know, black theater and there not being enough black theater, particularly, you know, original work. So and so, you know, he, you know, created uh, a vehicle to be able to support black theater and black theater in a black theater is even a, you know, it's like a bonus because then you see black people sometimes because other times you see black theater in a more traditional non-black setting and you the only black people are on stage.
Hmm.
So you know, there's this kind of problematic for me when I'm the only black person or I can count other black people in the audience and it's my story, the story of my people on the stage. So yeah, and to your point, I think that that there's an entree into the story from a variety of perspectives, whether you can follow the ancestor historic writer references or not. Your two characters, you know, Biggie and Tupac, they carry it, and there are subtleties, but they're not so subtle that you can't follow them in the story and their search and their dilemma and the resolution, if there is a resolution. You know, that's sort of questionable depending on you know your take on it. So anyway, I think it's great. So I don't want to keep you because you are in a liminal space yourself,
Yeah.
and and but I wanted to ask you, was there anything that we didn't talk about, that about the play, about your process, about the work, about what you're up to, where we can catch you next, you know, that you'd like to share?
Well, yeah, you can follow me at Say Biko on Instagram, SayBiko. My website is bikoeisenmartin.com, BikoEisenMartin.com. And definitely pull up. You have 4 more chances to see Pac and Biggie Are Dead, you
Yeah.
know, starting on the 28th. Um, 29th and the 30th, you know, please pull up and support. As far as I go, yeah, jump on the internet, stay tuned. I got a bunch of things coming up, so I don't, you know,
Okay,
yeah,
super,
yeah.
super. Well, thank you so much. It's always great seeing you. Good
Thank
to
you
be able to
so
see
much
you
for having us.
in
Sorry I was late.
Oh, that's okay. It was a pleasant surprise that you were able to make it given, you know, your circumstances. So wherever you are and wherever you're going, I hope the journey is smooth.
Thank you,
And
thank
thank you
you.
so much for your creative work. Really
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you for tuning in and shining a light on it. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You take good care. Peace and
All right,
blessings.
have a good one.
You too.